made a red oak crotch bowl a couple months ago, and in that video I mentioned that because the wood was so hard, if I had a carbide tip tool, I would use it. Mike Benjamin was watching that video and has some machinist skills and decided to make me a tool and sent it to me. I mean, what an amazing gift. I sure appreciate it. So in this video, I'm going to make a handle worthy of that tool. I'm using some cherry, 2x2 cherry, real pretty wood. I don't do a lot of spindle work, and believe it or not, this is my very first tool handle that I've ever made. So it's kind of fitting that my first tool handle is going to go on my first carbide tip tool. I had a pretty good idea of the shape that I wanted when I started. But the first thing I wanted to do was get it down to round and then cut off the excess piece. I guess I could have cut off that excess to begin with, but I didn't. Sorry about that horrible noise. There's a vibration coming from somewhere that I just could not track down. So I cut off the extra length off camera and then remounted, and now I'm going to start shaping with the spindle gouge. Once I got the shape down to a particular point, I mounted it onto just a 4-jaw chuck, as you see here, because I want to drill a hole in the other end to accept the tail of that tool. So I kind of stepped the holes up and tested it along the way, but it's a perfect 7/16. Listen. And this is just a little piece of copper pipe I picked up at a hardware store. Just cutting it down, and I'll use that to protect the neck, I guess, of the tool. It's not really going to be used for compression purposes, as that tail of the tool just fits perfectly in that hole. I'll use 5-minute epoxy and rough up the tail a little bit, and glue it in that way. But I'll make sure this copper fits nice and snug. Now, the reason I'm fitting the copper on there first is because that's the one part of this tool that has to be a specific diameter. So I wanted to get that fit on there and then adjust the rest of the tool accordingly, if that makes sense. And before I do the final shaping, let's take a look at what some of you amazing subscribers have made. Just blows me away, the talent in this audience. Charles Rogers made this vase. And look at this chunk. This is something I'd pick up. So ugly, but so beautiful when he's done. Gabe Voss inlaid some resin into some apricot logs. Gorgeous, gorgeous work. Stephen Dickens made this bowl for Helen. Helen's battling cancer, so you prairie warriors, you know what to do. Beautiful bowl. I want to thank all of you subscribers out there, old and new. My channel keeps growing, and I'm more and more thankful every day. Just amazing. Really a blessing. So I don't show it on camera, but I test this handle frequently because I've got some big old meat hooks I got to fit around that thing. It'll be nice to have a handle that fit my hands. Cherry some really beautiful wood, and this particular piece happens to have a little bit of heartwood and a little bit of sapwood. That's what the color differences are there. It's real pretty. Just perfectly straight grain too, so it's going to be strong. And there I'm roughing up the tail of the tool with 80 grit, just to give some that epoxy something to hold on to. Doesn't take much. Looking good. I'll let that epoxy set up for a good half hour. This is just a cut off piece of that same super hard red oak that gave me some trouble when I mentioned I didn't have one of these tools. So I thought that would be an appropriate first turn. So it did not take me long to appreciate the abilities of this carbide tip. I'm really happy to have this tool in my toolbox now. It's cutting through that red oak like butter. Man, this thing's nice. So this is just going to be a little single stem vase. Nothing fancy, but kind of pretty because it's got nice grain, and I left it off center on top and bottom, so it's going to come out at kind of a goofy sideways angle. Kind of a leaning tower type situation. I'm sure somebody's going to get on me in the comments about saying vase instead of vase. But that's just the way I was taught to say it growing up. Everybody said it that way. Just saying. Well, this was more of a test for the tool than it was, you know, a fancy design. But it still turned out pretty, I think. Mike Benjamin, I want to thank you again. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll be using it quite a bit. I hope you approve of the tool handle design. It's nice and balanced. I hope it's worthy of the tool that you made for me. Thanks for watching. Semper Fi. Do you want some peanuts? Do you want some peanuts?